In 1957, a mechanic in California received a report that stopped him cold. A Sacramento doctor had spent months testing motorcycle helmets, including the one this mechanic had spent 3 years building by hand. The verdict was devastating. The doctor concluded that most helmets on the market, including his, were not just ineffective. Some of them were actively making crashes worse by concentrating force directly onto the skull. Roy Richter did not argue. He did not hire a lawyer. He shut down production immediately, acquired rights to a better liner technology from a competing company, and rebuilt the Bell 500 from scratch. The redesigned helmet became the first in American history to receive Snell Foundation approval. And Roy Richter built a laboratory, the first dedicated helmet safety lab in the United States, so that this would never happen again on his watch. That is how Bell Helmets began. One man, one garage behind an auto parts store in the Los Angeles suburb of Bell, California. A man who watched his friends die on racetracks and decided he was going to do something about it. Roy Richter did not start Bell to build a brand. He started it to keep riders alive. Today, Bell is owned by Strategic Value Partners. You probably have not heard of them. They are a private equity firm, and they acquired Bell in January 2025 as part of a $1.1 billion bundle that also included Giro, Fox Racing, Camelback, Bushnell, and a paddleboard company. Bell Helmets, the company Roy Richter built helmet by helmet in a California garage, is now a line item in a private equity portfolio alongside a paddleboard brand. This is not an accident. This is the end result of a 40-year corporate acquisition chain that your favorite helmet brands have been running through like a meat grinder. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly who owns what you are putting on your head, who makes the real decisions about your protection, and which brands are still actually independent. To understand where we are, you need to understand where Bell started. Roy Richter opened Bell Auto Parts in the early 1950s, right in the middle of California's hot rod and racing explosion. He was a car builder and a racer himself. He understood speed, and he understood what happened when speed went wrong without proper protection. In 1954, he manufactured his first helmet by hand in the garage behind the store, reverse engineering military aviation helmets with the help of a former naval pilot. The Bell 500 featured a hand-laminated fiberglass shell and a polyurethane foam liner. It was worn at the Carrera Panamericana road race that same year. By 1955, a Bell helmet was at the Indianapolis 500. By the late 1950s, after Richter rebuilt the design from scratch, following that safety report, Bell had set the standard for the entire industry. In 1968, Bell introduced the first full-face motorcycle helmet ever made. In 1975, the first hard-shell bicycle helmet. Bell was not following the market. Bell was defining it. And here is the detail that matters for everything that comes after. Roy Richter was not a businessman chasing market share. He was a rider who wanted riders to survive. Every product decision Bell made in its first 3 decades came from that original mission. The company built the first helmet test laboratory in the United States specifically because Richter refused to sell a product he had not tested himself. That version of Bell helmets no longer exists. The first sale happened in 1980. Bell merged with Riddell, the football helmet manufacturer. It was still a helmet company at its core, so the mission did not feel compromised. But then in 1989, a group of investors completed a leveraged buyout, the kind of transaction where a company is purchased primarily using borrowed money, with the acquired company's own assets used as collateral. When a leveraged buyout happens, the people running the company stop answering to a founder. They start answering to debt. Bell went public in 1992, sold its motorcycle helmet division in 1991, then reacquired it in 2002. By 2006, Bell had been absorbed into Easton Bell Sports, a conglomerate that also made baseball bats, hockey equipment, and cycling wheels. The name Bell still appeared on the helmet, but the man who built it was long gone, and the organization making decisions about your protection was now accountable to shareholders and quarterly earnings calls. Then came 2004, and the entry of private equity. Fenway Partners, a private equity firm based in New York, created a new holding company called Riddell Bell Holdings to contain both Bell and Riddell. That holding company later became Easton Bell Sports after acquiring Easton, and then became BRG Sports in 2014 after selling Easton off. By this point, Bell had been renamed, rebranded, repackaged, and reorganized so many times that the organizational chart looked like a flow chart drawn by someone who had never ridden a motorcycle. And then came the deal that should have made every motorcyclist stop and ask a very hard question. In February 2016, BRG Sports sold Bell helmets, along with Giro, Blackburn, and Supreme, to Vista Outdoor for $400 million in cash. Vista Outdoor is a publicly traded company based in Clearfield, Utah. At the time of the acquisition, Vista Outdoor's two primary business segments were shooting sports and outdoor products. Its biggest revenue driver was Federal Premium, one of the largest ammunition manufacturers in the United States. Vista Outdoor also owned CCI, another major ammunition brand, and Alliant Powder. Let that land for a moment. Roy Richter stopped selling helmets in 1957 because a doctor told him they were not safe enough. He rebuilt the product from scratch. He built a safety laboratory. He spent decades making helmets because he believed riders deserved real protection. In 2016, that legacy ended up owned by a company whose primary business was making bullets. Vista Outdoor was not done building its portfolio. In 2022, it acquired Fox Racing, the motocross gear brand, for $540 million. The press release described Fox Racing as synergistic with Bell and Giro, and then Vista began doing what every private equity-backed conglomerate eventually does. It consolidated. In 2023, Vista Outdoor announced it was closing the Bell and Giro facility in Scotts Valley, California, laying off significant portions of the marketing, brand, and creative departments, and moving operations to Fox Racing's headquarters in Irvine. The official statement said the brands would remain distinct. Bell would be Bell. Fox would be Fox. Giro would be Giro. These are brands that had operated from separate locations, with separate teams and separate identities. For decades, they were now being run from the same building by the same cost-cutting leadership team. And the people who understood those brands, the marketing and creative staff who carried the institutional knowledge of what each helmet company had been built to represent, were laid off to make the numbers work. This is the part of consolidation that never appears in the press release. The knowledge walks out the door with the people they let go. By late 2024, Vista Outdoor had decided to break itself apart entirely. It separated into two companies. The ammunition business became something called the Kinetic Group and was sold to the Czechoslovak Group, a Central European defense conglomerate, for $2.23 billion. The outdoor products side, including Bell, Fox, Giro, Camelback, and Bushnell, was renamed Revellist and sold to Strategic Value Partners for $1.125 billion in January 2025. Strategic Value Partners is a private equity firm that specializes in distressed assets and turnaround investments. It is not a motorcycle company. It is not a safety company. It is a firm that buys underperforming portfolios, restructures them, and sells them again. That is what Bell Helmets is inside right now, a restructuring project. This is the story they do not put on the hang tag when you pick up a Bell helmet at the dealership. If this investigation is valuable to you, hit the like button. It helps us keep doing this work. Now let's talk about the broader market, because Bell is not the only helmet on your dealer's wall that has been through this machine. AGV is one of the most respected helmet brands in motorcycle racing. Founded in 1947 in northern Italy by Gino Amasano, AGV helmets have been worn by Giacomo Agostini and Valentino Rossi, two of the most celebrated riders in the history of the sport. In 2007, AGV was acquired by Dainese, the Italian protective gear company. Dainese was then acquired by Investcorp, a Bahraini investment firm, in 2014. Investcorp sold Dainese to the Carlyle Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the world, in 2022. And in 2025, Dainese was sold for €1 to its creditors after accumulating approximately 300 million euros in debt. €1. A company that owned AGV, one of the most storied motorcycle helmet brands on earth, sold for €1 because private equity debt made the balance sheet unsustainable. Shark Helmets, the French manufacturer, acquired Nolan, the Italian brand, in 2019, combining them under a holding company called Two Ride Holding. So, when you are standing at a dealership looking at a Shark and a Nolan and thinking you are choosing between two different companies with two different engineering philosophies, you are looking at two brands managed by the same parent organization. What you see on the wall is not a competitive market. It is a portfolio. So who is actually independent? Who is still making decisions based on what is best for the rider rather than what is best for a quarterly earnings report? There are 3 brands worth knowing. Shui was founded in Japan and remains publicly traded on the Tokyo Stock Exchange as an independent company. It has never been acquired, and it has never been absorbed into a larger conglomerate. Shui helmets are manufactured in Japan and are recognized by professional riders worldwide for their fit, finish, and safety performance. When Shui raises a price, it is because material or manufacturing costs changed, not because a private equity firm needs to hit a return target. Arai is a family company. Founded in Japan in 1937, it is still family-owned and never sold. Arai helmets are handcrafted, intentionally limited in production volume, and consistently ranked among the top performers in independent safety testing. The Arai family has declined every acquisition offer. They make fewer helmets than the conglomerates on purpose because they believe making fewer helmets and making them correctly is more important than scaling up to capture market share. Schuberth is a German manufacturer with roots going back to 1922. It remains privately held and manufactures in Germany. Schuberth supplies helmets to German police forces and has a long track record in high-performance safety applications. When you buy a Schuberth, the people who made the decision to design it that way are the same people who own the company. These 3 companies will cost you more than the brands on the consolidation carousel. That is not a coincidence. Independence costs money to maintain, and they are not cutting corners to satisfy a firm in New York or Bahrain or Prague. The next time you are at a dealer looking at helmets, ask one question before you make a decision. Who actually owns this? Because the name on the shell and the organization making decisions about your safety are often 2 completely different things. Roy Richter shut down his production line in 1957 because he found out his helmet might hurt you. The people who own Bell today are focused on restructuring a portfolio. Those are not the same mission. Subscribe to Fastest Way if you want to know the difference. Share this with a rider who trusts the brand on their helmet without knowing who is behind it. And leave a comment below telling us which helmet brand you ride in. We read every one.